triceps extensions are obviously one of the most well-known, and rightly so, exercises to train the triceps. But there's one variation of a triceps extension that I honestly see very, very few people doing. And today I want to talk about it and why it's so important to include in your training. So first of all, just to orient ourselves and to give just a little bit of backstory here, here is someone who is doing a triceps extension, right? So here is the upper arm, here's the forearm, and let's say they have a cable in their hand and that cable is pulling them upward like that, right? As they go through the triceps extension, their arm is gonna kind of come down, boop, boop, boop. Here's the sort of middle of the triceps extension, and here is the end, right? And so from beginning to end, we're looking at someone from the side doing something like this. And this is a great exercise to train the triceps, right? Because this cable, it's pulling upward at every single point. It's pulling upward here, it's pulling upward here, and from the back, or the bottom rather, it's pulling upward there. And so this is a great exercise because, you know, specifically for the triceps, it's trying to bend the elbow against which we straighten the elbow, right? And the same thing could be said of something like an overhead extension where you have a cable in your hand or a rope in your hand, and it's bending your elbows as you're straightening the elbows. But what you'll notice about this exercise is that in this top position, and I'll just erase this so that it's a little bit more clear to see exactly which part of the motion I'm talking about here. What you'll notice is that there's very little loading when the elbow is fully bent. Now, of course, there are some ways that you could do this to make it a little bit easier to load this elbow bent position, but a lot of extensions, just rope extensions, whether it's by your side or slightly wide or out to the sides, a lot of rope extensions don't load the elbow significantly when it's really bent. They tend to make it more challenging, these exercises, when the elbow is more straight. And so you'll get a really good stimulus for the squeezed position with the traditional kind of push down. But what you'll kind of often miss is loading the elbow bent position, i.e. finding a load in a load direction that allows you to really overload and challenge that stretch position, right? And in my opinion, I think training the stretch and training the squeeze are equally important for all things hypertrophy, orthopedic, joint health related, muscle health related, if you want to go that far. And so I think it's important to find a way to really maximally load this elbow bent position. So how do we do that? Well, instead of doing a sort of normal quote unquote triceps push down where the load is going sort of upward and forward that way, what we can do instead is set up on some kind of cable and basically grab the cable and face away from it such that it is pulling backward behind our body. Why? Well, because when it's pulling backward behind our body, if this is the upper arm and this is the forearm, right, and this is sort of what happens when we straighten and bend the elbow, in this elbow bent position, we will maximally load the elbow in this position only if a cable is basically smushing these two things together in this position. Right? Because if we think about the normal rope push down, a cable would just be sort of pulling up this way, which isn't really loading this motion very much. And so when we face away from the cable column, when we grab, let's say, a single cable with a handle, and we perform something that's more like a triceps press, our aim should be to have the cable directly sort of behind us, close to our necks, so that as we go through this more pressing type of motion, what you'll notice is the cable is really close to and on top of the shoulder, meaning the shoulder is loaded very, very minimally, and the elbow, because it's so far from the cable, gets loaded maximally. And because your arms are in this position fully bent, your triceps, at least the single joint heads in this position, they're fully stretched. And so you might want to consider including this motion because this is not a position and a muscle length that is challenged with the traditional push down. And so my two favorite ways to do this, number one is just with a single cable, as I'll have been showing through a variety of different videos here and angles. But another way that you can do it if you maybe just don't want to do it single arm for whatever reason, or maybe you don't have access to like a functional trainer where you can move the arms wherever you want, is just to grab two separate ropes and tie the ropes together and make them as long as possible. And then once you do that, you basically just put your butt up against the cable column, put the ropes behind you, and do it that way. And although this variation will be limited in terms of the range, right, the back of the ropes where the ropes meet is just gonna run into the back of your neck, the goal of this exercise, much like any exercise, is really just to train a portion of the total range, right? With any exercise in any muscle group, with the exception of just a few, we can't really train the full contractile range of a muscle, nor should we try. It's just kind of impractical. And so when we set this up and we have those ropes behind us, don't worry about trying to do the whole locking thing. And even if you do it single arm, you don't really need to worry about the locking thing. Again, because the emphasis and the purpose of this motion is to load more of that stretch. And so that's the reasoning, that's the rationale, and I hope this is something that you can utilize and implement into your own training, and something that you can immediately sort of see and feel a difference in compared to the normal triceps pushdown. And also keep in mind that I'm not saying that you shouldn't do the regular push down. My argument is that you should keep those in, but maybe just devote some more volume to a motion like this so you can get a more complete tricep stimulus throughout the course of a week and throughout the course of a training cycle. All the exercises that you saw in this video were taken directly from my exercise library. If you want to take the guesswork out of lifting, click the link in the description to get it.